Welcome, everybody. My name is Nicholas Mitchell. I'm the programming librarian here at Fountaindale Public Library, and I have a great guest today. We have Rene Gonzalez. He's going to talk about comic book collecting with us today. So I'll hand it off right away. Rene, how long have you been collecting comic books?
Oh, I've been collecting all my life since I was maybe 5 or 6. But before I get on with that, I want to thank you very much for inviting me to do this.
Course.
And I love Fountaindale Library, and it's the best library around. So, yes, I've been collecting since I was a kid. So I've been collecting all my life, basically.
Interesting. So I've always wanted to collect comic books, but I've never really had a good foundation to where to start. So if I want to start collecting comic books at my very young age, where do I start? Like, what's the first thing I should start doing?
Well, the very first thing you need to do if you want to collect comic books is collect the comic books you want to collect. Don't go looking for comic books thinking, oh, this is going to be worth something. Get what you like. If you like it, somebody else is going to like it. And chances are, the more people who like it makes it more collectible. That's basically it. I started collecting comic books as a young kid, as I said, and I collected Superboy. and adventure comic books and action comic books and Batman, and then I worked my way up, Spider-Man, etc. And those were things I liked as a kid. And now, well, they're old, like me, but they're now collectibles. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you probably have some comic books you still have from when you were a kid.
Oh yeah, I have plenty of comic books from when I was a kid. I definitely have comic books that were. I remember running to the store with my dollar. And picking up 10 comic books because they were 10 cents at the time. Now, it's going back a while. and I remember putting them all down and giving him my 10 cents, picking up and leaving. And then one day I went in there and grabbed my usual 10 comic books, put down my dollar, and he stopped me and says, wait a minute. And he goes, they went up, they're 12 cents. And I was like, what? And I had to return too.
Yeah,
so I was like, oh.
Heartbreaking.
But it was good because it allowed me to ask my mom for a raise on my allowance, so it allowed me to get another quarter. And I now had $1.25 so I could buy my 12 comic books.
You ask for a pay raise while you get your allowance down because the cost of goods go up.
Yeah, exactly. Cost of living goes up. Yeah, everything goes up because now comic books are $5.99. Anywhere from $3.99 to $5.99. Some of them are $9.99 depending on if they're collectibles. Again, collectibles is a term that's used, but it may not necessarily be a collectible comic book.
Gotcha. So let's expand on that one a little bit more. So we have collectible comic books. I know that when I walk into, like, say, Graham Crackers, which is one of the local comic stores around here, I'm overwhelmed by all of the different covers and shininess of all the different products. So what is the things that we should be looking for? What are some things that, as a collector, to keep in mind while we start buying and collecting our comics?
Well, as I said, you buy the comic books that you want to read, the storylines you want. When you're investigating, let's say you decided you wanted to buy Superman comic books, so just picking up a title, and you say, oh, I'm going to collect all the Superman comic books. Well, there's over 1,000 Superman comic books, and that means you would have to go back to 1939, first issue, all the way to present, and there's no way, unless you're like a multi-billionaire, that you're going to get all those. So that's kind of a far-fetched dream. But let's say you wanted to collect something like Amazing Spider-Man. Now they only go back to the 60s, and that's not so bad. And you can possibly collect almost all of them, maybe not the really older ones. But look at the comic books you want. They're constantly revamping and restarting and rebooting comic books, and whether it's Marvel, DC, Little Lulu, Snoopy, Archie, The Spirit, Hellboy, whatever the comic book is, they're constantly being rebooted and redone and starting over at 1 again and then picking up again. So if you happen to pick up a comic book and it's issue number 6, like here I have a Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn Poison Ivy, issue number 6, I can easily collect all 6 covers and begin my collection. And that's a regular comic book. That one happens to be a shared cover comic book, which I happen to like. Let's see, I can put it over here like this, and you put the two together, and it makes one picture. If you could see that, like that. See, it's one picture. They connect. They're connecting comic books. And it's issue number 6. So I have got all the 5 previous issues and any variants of whatever to come out. So look for the comic books you want. When you're picking a comic book, and this is important as a collector, when you pick up a comic book, I'll just grab this for the time being. This happens to be Harley Quinn thing here. So you pick it up, you look at the corners, the edges, make sure that there's not a large amount of fingerprints on it, make sure there's no bendings, no twists, no folded, creased pages. It needs to be as though nobody's touched it. And what I do when I go and I pick up a comic book, because I collect them, I make sure I have my hands clean, and that when I go, as silly as it sounds, when I go to the comic book store, I wash my hands before I go in there. Okay, so they're clean, they're dry, and when you pick up the comic book, you scan the whole list of them, because when they're back to back to back in the issues, you can see the sides. Make sure they're folds and not creased, where there's no white showing, because if there's white showing, you're not going to get a good rating out of it if you decide to have it encapsulated or graded later. So if it's still the cover and it wraps around and there's no white showing, no edges, no folds, and that I slide that one out and that put it to the side, and I get the next one and I grab what I'm going to get, and then I stack up the comic books I want to collect: Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, whichever one it is. And that's how you pick them. You're very careful. You put them down. You take really good care of them. And then you need to protect those when you get them. And that's another question, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are some of the supplies you need to start collecting? Because I know enough about having them in bags, but after that, I know that certain materials work better with certain paper, and there's actually a lot of science into how we can preserve and keep our comic books in decent order.
Yes. When you go to the comic book store, it's best to get what they call acid-free plastic covers. And then the back, they have acid-free cardboard backings that are, some are have a film on one side, so that's the side that goes against the comic book. And then the other side is just cardboard. But they're acid-free, and they prevent the comic books from turning yellow. When I was a kid and I started collecting, I stuck them in plastic bags. God knows why I did that, but I did. And I collected them, and I put them in boxes, and I did all kinds of things. And then when I finally pulled them out later and took a look at them and decided I was going to rebox them and get them all ready, all the plastic covers were yellow.
Oh.
The comic book was still in good shape, but the plastic cover was not acid-free back, or acid-free, or PPA, I think it is.
Yeah.
Not included or not in it, and it caused the comic book. It was still preserved and still in good shape. It's just the plastic itself was starting to degrade. So I took them all out and bagged and boarded them, as they call it. So when you get a comic book and it's not in the plastic, like you get it like this. This is called a raw comic book.
Okay.
This is just comic book, plain, simple. You put it in there. Slide it in your back, you slide it in your bag, you put it inside your cardboard, you put it inside the plastic, put a little piece of tape on it. Now it's bagged and boarded. So that's how you know it, and that's how it's preserved and saved. And those plastic covers will protect the comic book as long as you live. Because nowadays they're very, very conscientious about protecting your comic book and keeping it from turning yellow. And if a comic book turns yellow, you really lose your value in your comic book.
Gotcha. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit, because I remember you brought up the Poison Ivy Harley Quinn covers. Now, are those both the same issue of the story?
Yeah, good question. Yes. This one is the same issue.
Okay.
This one is the same issue. It's issue number 6 in this case. And it was what they call a shared cover. And it's Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. And then you put the two covers together and it becomes one cover. So there's different kinds of covers. And that's an example of a shared cover. You could, a comic book, when you buy a comic book, there is the regular comic book that has, the price of the comic book. It's got the border, the letterhead, everything that it's just a regular comic book, and it has every DC, whatever. And then you can get a comic book that's called a virgin cover, or a minimum. Well, actually, there's a virgin cover, which would be like this. This would be a virgin cover where there's nothing on it at all. It's just the comic book itself, and there's no writing, doesn't tell you anything. But this is Spider-Woman.
Okay.
And this is the original Spider-Woman comic book back when they first were released.
And that's the same issue?
One.
Those
No,
two?
no.
Oh, okay.
This is more
recent one.
And
Okay.
this is just, so you can see the difference between, the
all the
price and
information
everything that's
on
on there. So you can get a comic book like that. You can get a Virgin comic book. You can get a foil comic book. You can get a embossed comic book. You can there are variants. That's what they call them, comic book variants. And there are, I want to say, dozens of variants, but there are. There really are different kinds of coverage. So if you bought, like you mentioned with the Harley Quinn Poison Ivy comic book, that's one cover. It's the same comic book, and that's issue number 6. There were 4 issues number 6, I believe, maybe 5. So they're all the same comic books, but if you're a collector, as I am, you have to get them all. You don't have to, but as a collector, I get them all. So then I have that full set. So then, to me, it's more valuable to have that full set than it is to say, okay, I got this, combination cover, and that's good, and I don't need the rest of them. Well, you're kind of not completing your
You come up short a little bit on what you're looking for.
Part of being a collector is you want as many of that comic book as you can get. So when they do come out with 5, or let's say issue number 6 of Harley Quinn, and there's the original cover plus there's 5 variant covers, including a combination cover, well, you're going to get 5 covers, including the combination cover, so that you have the whole set.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, if I go to a comic book store, would I be able to buy all of those variants at the one time, or is that something that you kind of have to bounce around and try different stores and different sellers?
Well, that's a good question. What I suggest, and this is something that I really encourage anyone who's collecting, I suggest you work really good with your comic book store. You don't have to go to one particular comic book store. I go to several, and many of the comic book owners know me. Okay. So I tell them, I'm looking for this comic book. You get it, let me know, hold it to the side, and they will.
Yeah.
And they'll just get your name and number. If they don't know you, they'll ask for your name, number. They may even ask for a credit card or whatever if they hold it, depending on what it is. Yeah. But as I said, if you go on the day the comic books come out, they come out on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I believe, depending on which ones they are, DC or Marvel. Or if they're independent, they could be various times. But usually those are the 2 days that the new comic books come out. So if you go on that first day, you should be able to pick, like I said, with a Harley Quinn one, if issue number 6 is released today, you'll have all the comic book covers there. And they'll be all the same comic book price, $3.99, $4.99, $5.99. And if they're variant covers that are harder to get, or, for example, some variant covers, a comic book store will have to order a certain amount of comic books in order to get a variant.
Okay.
So let's say you go to Nicholas's comic book store, and Nicholas says, hey, I'm going to get 5 of these variants. Yeah. And then you look at it, and if you order 25 of a comic book, you'll get what's called variant cover 1 of 25. If you order 50, you'll get 1 of 25 and 1 of 50. So you only have, actually, you'll get 2 of the 25 and 1 of the 50. So you'll have 3 variant covers. So if you order 100, you'll get 1 of the 100. It's 1 in 100. 1 in 50, you'll get 2 1 in 50s, and then you'll get 4 1 in 25. So the comic book store says, well, I have to put out all this money to get these extra variants. Mm-hmm. So that 1 in 25, well, instead of charging $5.95, I might charge $24.99 for it.
Gotcha.
As a collector, you go, well, do I really want it that bad? And that's where you got to decide. Make sure if you set a budget, stick to your budget. Mm-hmm. Because if you say, okay, my budget's $50 a week or whatever it is, then you'll say, well, if I buy that one, then I'm going to have to only get 4 other comic books because I may only be able to get 4 or 5 other comic books if I buy that one at 25. Then if you get the 1 in 50 and he says, well, that one's 25, but this one I'm going to charge $39.99.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's 1 in 50, so he's got to buy 50 comic books to get that one. That's a little more expensive. 1 in 100, that's going to cost you a little more, $79.99. 1 in 500, well, that's going to be a little heftier. That might be about $100, 1 in 1,000, that means he's got to order 1,000 of those comic books just to get that one. Now, he will get the other variants, but that one, that's going to be a pretty good expensive comic book. So he may charge you $100. He may even charge you more. And if it becomes one of those hard to get comic books. Like you can get a comic book like, let's say here, this one here.
Okay.
This is Spawn, number
Oh yeah. I think it's
number
like
one. This is what's called Spawn Black and White. I believe they only made about 400 of those worldwide. If you get something like that, and it's a variant, which this one was, and it's way out there, and you say there's only that many in the world, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to get. So if you're lucky enough to get it then at a reasonable price, you know, as a collector, get it. Because next week it's going to be double. Because if they know that's a hot commodity, they're going to pull it back and start raising the prices.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you got a comic book that you wanted to get that you should have bought for $20, maybe $24.99. That's now $1,000, and it's out of your reach. You know, and
you have to hit up another collector at that point in time instead of going back to the store.
You may not get it.
Yeah.
And then you go, darn, I should have bought it. And I've done that many times where I've gone, darn, I should have bought that. I knew I should have bought it, but I didn't.
What was the comic that you felt that the most? Like, what was
the comic book?
Yeah, the one that you're just like the most frustrated you didn't grab.
Let me think here. There's a few of them.
Sure.
Let me think here. I guess that's a really good question. There's been a few that I had thought I should have gotten that I didn't get. I'll give you a good example. Spider-Man issue number 300.
Okay.
When that first came out, that had a variant cover that was called a foil cover.
Okay.
Or a chromium type cover. And I have one similar, but I don't have, you know, this one is the chromium cover. I don't know if you can see it in the thing, but it actually shines and shimmers, and this one happens to be a 9.4 on the rating. I should have bought that comic book as just a foil cover, not the chromium cover, or even just a regular comic book, because that's one of those that slipped by me and I didn't get. You know, I got that one only because I really thought it looked pretty. You know, it was at a time when chromium or foil covers were rare. So I said, I love this cover, I'm buying this. So, and then it was like $9.99 at the time, I think.
Okay.
And I was like, no big deal. Now I don't know how much they're worth. They're worth a lot more, I'll tell you that much, but I don't know how much they're worth.
Gotcha. Okay.
And as a collector, I did want to also point, as a collector, I don't go and say, oh, this one's worth it. Oh, I collect them, I put them to the side, and I protect them, and at times, every now and then, I'll sell them. You know, but that's it.
Yeah, it's not something you're constantly checking up on. You're just I don't want to have this one anymore. Let's see what we can get for it.
Yeah, I don't do that. When I reach the point that I say, oh yeah, I'm going to get rid of a box, and I just grab a box, bring it to my comic book friend, John, and I bring it to him, and I say, hey, John, take a look what you got. Give me a number, and then I'll see if it's good or bad. And then he looks at it and goes, oh, this is great. Oh, this is, oh, and I'm like, oh, yeah. And we go through it, and he says, and then he puts them on consignment. Consignment is something that you can do with a comic book store if you both trust the store and they also trust you. You bring the book to them, they put it on consignment, they put it up there, you negotiate a price that you think is reasonable for the book. He'll put it out for sale, and if it sells, he gets a percentage, usually less than an auction house or some other vendors. And it's usually something you can negotiate 15, 20%, which is a very good, reasonable amount.
Yeah.
Auction houses will take 30 or more, depending on what it is. So you negotiate that. He sells your books, and if they don't sell, if you got some that aren't selling, you'll negotiate what kind of, you know, how do you lower the price, how much you want to lower it to, what do you want to do as a deal, and those are the ways you get rid of comic books.
Gotcha. Gotcha. When you brought up the Spider-Man 300 Chromium Edition, you talked about the rating at the top. I'm assuming this is something that happens only at cons, or is this like how do I get my comic books rated? Well,
there are vendors available that will do that. There's let's see, there's PDX, GCG, CSC, no CG, no, what is it? CSCC, I think, or CS. Excuse me, S. Well, anyway, there's a number of vendors. I don't have the names of them all, but there are a number of vendors out there. In my opinion, I don't want to put one over another. But there's CBCS, which is the one that did this one. The reason I sent it to them is they were the best price at the time. You can get something like this, which is, I don't know if you can see it like there. And that's CGC. And this is Iron Man #1, the Invincible Iron Man. My buddy Brian would kill for that one. And then those are two very good vendors. And then, like I said, there's PBX, I believe, is another one. Those three are probably at the top of the line on comic book ratings. And you can get a comic book rated. You can pick up a comic book like this, send it to them. They'll grade it, rate it for you. And if you want it encapsulated in like the Spider-Man one is in the plastic, they'll give you charge you an amount somewhere between $25, $30, depending on the book. If it's an older book and it needs more TLC, is a good way to put it. And because it's an older comic book, they take better care to press them and grade them and put them in there so that they are preserved forever. They'll charge you a little premium for the older comic books because they're taken better care of. But the rating system is from 10, which is a perfect comic book. In my entire life, I've never had a 10 rated comic book. I have busted myself backwards to protect my comic books. But the best I can get is something like this is a Superman comic book, Bizarro, and that's Superman number 4, and this is a 9.9. That was the best I could do, and that was a comic book that I took a lot of TLC to get and send and have it encapsulated. And I thought, this one, finally I'm going to have a perfect 10, and it came back 9.9. What's the difference? When you read the notes and they tell you, well, there's a little blemish here, there's a little mark in the corner there, and you're like, you've got to be kidding me. But you know what? That's the way it is. And you can say, never mind, I'm not happy with it, break the seal and take it out, and then send it to someone else and hope that they'll give you a 10. But bottom line is, I'm happy with what I got.
Yeah.
So when they rate your comics, there's 10, 9.9, 9.8, 9.6, 9.4, 9.2, 9.0, and then it skips to 8.5, 8, and then everything. It's half increments to there until you get to 1, and then you get 0.5, and then 0.3, and then 0.1, which are usually comic books that are so bad they don't have covers, they're yellow, they're really in poor shape, and they'll get like a 0.1 rating. Yeah, I've never seen a 0. Although I would guess that there's some out there they would have to probably say you can't rate this. But if you got a 0.1, that's really pretty bad. It's no cover, it's yellow, it's flaking at the edges.
Probably tears.
And it could be that the reason they had it encapsulated was to preserve it, but it might have been like Action Comics number 1, or something that was like so rare. You really need to protect and preserve it. So that would probably be it. But to get them encapsulated really does preserve them. Make sure it's a comic book you never want to read again, because once it's sealed, it's sealed. You can break them and open them again, but you're better off not. Once you seal it, it's a done deal. My comic books, I've read them all, every single one of them, and there are some I've forgotten what the story was. They're so old now. But I've read them all, so I know all the stories and that. And when I think about it, I go, oh yeah, that's the one about da 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 da, and then I'll go there. But they're all read, they're all protected. I try to keep them in good shape, and then, like I said, I get them encapsulated when I think this is a good one that's worthwhile to do. And I've got some examples of those too.
By all means, I was gonna say it looks like you got some cool covers that we can look at here. So what are some of your favorites of what you brought or on the show?
Just so you know that I don't only have 9.8s, 9.9s and 9.6. This is a 9.6. This is the Batman Harley Quinn. This is a collectible. This was one of the rare one-shot deals in the comic books. And this is a 9.6. And, I wanted to point out, when you get them rated by CGC, for example, you can get a pedigree. Certain collectors have pedigrees, and that means that you collected for a long time, and then you can get a pedigree if you have enough comic books and enough collectibles, and that they think that you're worth getting a pedigree. So this is a pedigree issue, 9.6, which means one owner, one household, forever. That was me. And then here's one. I'm showing this one because this is a rare example of an error. You know, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but this is a 9.8 She-Hulk, and on the top it says She-Hulk. I'll let you see it. It says She-Hulk number 1.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, it's She-Hulk number, what is it here? I can't read it. 60, I believe.
Yeah, it's She-Hulk number
So
60.
She-Hulk number 60. The funny thing with this is that She-Hulk number 1 and She-Hulk number 60 had the same cover. They have different words. Number 1, which I didn't bring, I should have brought as an example, is saying, okay, guys, come and read my comic book. Otherwise, I'll go to your house and destroy all your X-Men and Avenger comic books, like it says down here. Now, this is 60. This is her last comic book that says, okay, we had a deal. I'm coming over and destroying your comic books. You know, so that's kind of funny. Yeah. So it got confused with number 1 because I had number 1 and number 60 both encapsulated, and they put number 1 on both. So that's just an odd mistake. But actually, that makes it even more valuable. Oddly enough, mistakes and errors lead to increased values, not decreased values.
Interesting.
You know, so that's a funny thing. And then this is Spider-Man number 1. This is called the, I believe this is the platinum. No, silver, sorry. This is silver Spider-Man. This is one of my favorites.
Okay.
You know, and then there's also a platinum version of that. And then I also have, as I showed before, the Invincible Iron Man. I got to take it out of the plastic. You know, this one is a lovely comic book. As you can see, it's 6.5, I believe. It's not an 8.5 or anything, but it's 6.5. The good thing about older comic books is even if they're rated lower, they still hold their value because they're older comic books and there's less of them available. So that's not a bad deal. Even though it's a 6.5, it's still a good collectible, and somebody out there, whenever I get around to it, will be happy to buy that.
Yeah.
And then I have also something here I have. This is a Wolverine number 1. It came out in 2020 when rebooted Wolverine. And this one is a virgin cover. Beautiful black and white.
Yeah.
This is called a sketch cover. So I told you there's variants. There's different variants. There's black and white. There's foil, embossed, all different kinds. And this is a sketch cover. So I had 2 of them, so I had the better of the two, encapsulated. And this has got a Wolverine caption on top, so that makes it even more harder to get because I only did that for a short period of time, and that's a 9.8. But if you look at the 2 covers, it's very hard to tell why would this be 9.8 and this one not be. But I can even show Nicholas. You can see the little nicks.
Oh yeah,
just the little nicks in the corner.
Oh man,
very little things like that. And even though it looks great, it would have probably got a 9.4 or 9.6 on the rating. So that's why you pick and choose which one you're going to get, and those little tidbits make a difference.
Yeah,
they really do. Because you can see the nicks.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not anything substantial.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit.
But it would drop it down. I would say that's probably going to get a 9.4.
Gotcha.
And probably there.
Now, you've never owned a graded 10 comic book.
No.
It feels like it's the unicorn of comics. Have you seen?
I've seen. Yeah, I've seen 10s. Yeah.
Okay.
Take for example.
Is it like the shine of supernatural glory off
yeah.
of it?
It's when you hear it, the.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like angels and
open up, and it's beautiful. You know, it's like yeah. But I've even held a 10 and just said, yeah. And the thing is that it wasn't even that old of a comic book. I wish I could remember which one it was. And it was a 10, and I held it. And it was maybe 10 years ago when it came out. And he had it encapsulated. And it was one that was considered valuable. I wish I could tell you what it was. I'm trying to think here. I believe it was, my memory tells me, I think it was a Spider-Man comic book. But I can't be for sure on that. But I remember looking at the comic book going, wow, I know this one is pretty expensive. How much does it go as a 10? And the guy said you couldn't afford it.
Oh man!
And I said, wow. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right?
Oh no!
And he said, and I went, whoa. And I gave it back to him, and he goes, right now it's that one, the one that he had, was $24.99 or $24,999.99. So it's just under. It was 1 penny under $25,000.
Oh my god!
Because it was rated 10. You know, and I was like,
cats.
God, good grief. And I go, man, I should have bought that comic book.
Yeah.
But no, but again, being very careful, sealing them up, protecting them, really makes a difference. So if you're going to be a collector, take care of your books, take care of them, even if you don't have them encapsulated. Cardboard back, acid-free.
Bag them and board.
You want to get a really good comic book. This one is Batman Adventures. The reason this one is so valuable, number 12, is because this is the first time Harley Quinn ever appeared in a comic book.
Oh, snap.
So this is the first Harley Quinn issue.
Yeah.
If you look, and then I show this to Nicholas here, this plastic here is Mylar.
Okay.
And then this is an acid-free backing and just a regular one in there. The reason it's double like that is because it's so valuable. So I take a little extra caution and a little extra care in making sure it's well protected.
Would that be one that you're looking to get encapsulated?
Yeah, I probably will. Yeah, actually, I have one that's already encapsulated.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I have this one, but again, you can see the little blemishes, so you can see it's been read, it's been touched, whatever. Because at the time, I didn't think that it would be like so sought after. So so again, that one I protect, but if I got that one, I'd probably have it encapsulated because I already have one done.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this one done because this is like maybe my second best, and I think I have one more, and I can do two.
Yeah.
And then whatever ratings, and then I'll sell the lower graded ones, sell them off, and then keep the better one for later. Maybe give it to one of the grandkids or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. So that works.
Now, with the Harley Quinn one as an example, that's worth quite a bit of money, considering that it's one of the first of Harley Quinns.
It is the first.
But it's also not even that old of a comic book, if I remember correctly. Like, Harley Quinn as a character is maybe 30 years old, I'd say.
Yeah, matter of fact, right on the money. Yeah, it is, exactly 30 years. Yeah.
Is there an age or a timeline that you'd say would influence the value of a comic book? Like, say if I have a comic book I bought 4 days ago, that's one of, a very small batch, would that be worth something 5 years from now or 10 years from now as much as the Harley Quinn is?
Actually, yeah. You see, there one thing that some collectors do, I don't, but some collectors do what's called flipping comic books. It's like flipping houses, buy it cheap, renovate it, sell it quick,
Gotcha.
You take a comic book, and let's say you bought, let's say, in this case, I'm going to talk about Captain Carter. This one, Captain Carter. And this one, when it was released a couple years back, they did a limited release because they didn't know if it would be picked up and all that. And they flew off the shelves. I mean, literally flew off the shelves.
Okay.
And immediately they went from, $4.99 or $5.99. No, $3.99.
Yeah.
$3.99, and then the variant, I believe, I don't know what the variant was. Maybe that was also $3.99 because there's 3 different covers for that one. Like that.
And it's all the same issue, too.
Same issue, just different variants. And, of course, I got collector I am. Got all 3. They flew off the shelves. And people wanted them so badly that they were actually... I saw them on eBay as much as $1,000.
Whoa.
And now you think, oh, well, why didn't you sell it? You would have had $3,000. Oh, well, you're a collector. You don't collect it to make money off of it now. Maybe somewhere down the road, maybe. But you collect them because this is what you like to do. And I like to read the comics, and I love having them. And I like reading them, and I enjoy having them. Eventually, I will sell them, and I don't know what their value is now. And it's probably not as much, or maybe it's more. I don't know. But people who buy comic books and flip them really fast can make a good buck, too. But it's a risk. You buy a whole bunch of comic books. You go to a comic book store and say, well, I'm buying every single premiere issue that comes by. And you might end up with 10 or 20 of them.
Yeah.
Stick them all down, and then you bag and board them, and then you wait, and not one of them is worth $3.99. And that happens. And you go like, rats, I didn't make anything off of this. And then you go back. You might sell it for $5 or $10 or $20 or whatever. It's hit or miss. There are some comic books that you can buy. And it's only because of, like this one here is a hologram one. And this is Batman Fortnite. This one is an extremely rare comic book. And I only bought it because my grandson liked Fortnite, so I figured I'd buy him a whole bunch, and I thought I'd buy that one for me.
Yeah, there you go.
And it turns out that it's a rare comic book. There's not many of them out there, so all of a sudden, boom, it skyrockets. So you just say, wow, I got that. So you hold on to it. And then there's rare comic books like this one. This is a Wonder Woman comic book that's called a museum edition, and it's a rare virgin cover. It's extremely hard to get a hold of. There's very limited covers or limited copies of that, and I let Nicholas touch it.
Ooh, it was so fun. It was so fun.
I took it out of the bag and that, but he could vouch for me. It's like it's printed on canvas.
Yeah,
it's
got some weight to it.
Yeah, and it's a very hefty comic book. It weighs like you can take 3 regular comic books and it's about the same.
Yeah,
it's about the same weight.
I mean, the quality of paper is almost like what you get from a regular
parchment.
book. Yeah, parchment almost.
And it's a collectible, and it's called the museum edition, and it's a rare comic book. I actually got that from a comic book pen pal I have who's in Italy, and I sent him a comic book that he was looking for, and he sent me that one. And I was like, "That's awesome!" So I was like,
that is
great.
super cool.
So that and like I didn't say this before, but when you collect comic books, there's a lot of people out there who collect too, and you can buy and trade and do all kinds of stuff, and you build up a communication with them, a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I buy comic books from people online, and there's people online that I trust that I'll buy them from. If you buy comic books from, let's say, eBay or Facebook or some comic book chain on the internet, I strongly urge you to read the reviews. Don't just say, "Oh, I want that comic book," and buy it, judging from the picture. Because sometimes a seller will give you a picture, and if you don't read the fine print, you don't realize that it's an archive photo. It's just a photo from what the comic book originally looked like, and when you get it, it's torn up and messed up, and it's not what you wanted. And you're out of luck, because most comic book places will not give you a refund or will not take the comic book back, because once you get it and you open it, they don't know if you're going to open it, and then you rip it and go, "Oh, it came that way."
Yeah.
You can't do that. So for example, if I wanted to sell on eBay, and I'm a conscientious, honest person when I sell my comic books, I can't risk them returning it without having done something to it. Even if they innocently ripped it or it got damaged in the mail, that's a little different, because hopefully if you send something that you sold, you have it insured. Absolutely have it insured. Even if it's the U.S. Postal Service, it's kind of tough to get a good refund from them. You got to work at it, because they do sometimes mess things up, and it takes a while to get the refund.
Mm-hmm.
Once something gets destroyed, but you can get it back, and as long as it's insured. So you got to be careful with those things. But I would urge you, if you buy anything online from anybody as a collector, read the reviews, because most people, when they write a review, if they got 100% number 1 5-star reviews, they're going to be good. If they come back with 4.5, I don't read the good ones. I want to read the bad ones. I want to see, what did they screw up. And if it's screwed up because he didn't give me a refund fast enough on something that got ruined in the mail, I can understand that, because like I said, it takes a while to get the refund back from the post office in order to pay someone back. So if a seller is, just selling 2 or 3 comic books and he got a good price for it, and he can't get the refund or can't pay you back until he gets the refund from his postal carrier or FedEx or whoever it is, and he's waiting, you might have to wait for that, because that's just the way it is. So make sure you read the reviews, but don't read the good ones. You want to read what's the bad things that they did, because I've ordered stuff, and believe me, I have been really appalled at some of the things that I've received, and I've sent them back, and I've gotten refunds, because I make sure that if I buy it off of somebody, that it's protected, that it's insured, and that it's refundable. So those are the things you need. And in some cases on eBay, they will guarantee the sale. So if the seller screws up and you get something you didn't want, you can go back to eBay, and if eBay has their product guarantee on that,
Hmm.
you can get it back from eBay, and then eBay will bicker with the guy.
Oh,
And
okay.
you're out of it. So then you don't have to wait till somebody gets a refund and then pays you back.
There you go. That's a good way
Okay,
to do
so
it.
so read reviews, absolutely.
I'm trying to think of another question that I might have, because I know we touched a lot of topics, and I feel a lot more confident if I were to start collecting comic books. I now know that the reboot of the Batman New 52 issue I have is probably not worth a lot.
Well, it would depend.
Okay.
Did you only get the main cover, or did you get the variants?
See, that's the question I don't know.
Well, show it to
I'm
me.
fairly certain I have
Show
just
it
the
to me
main
then.
one, but
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Show it to me. I'll take a look at it. I'll be more than happy to look at it. I'm not going to say I'm going to rate your comic book, but I'll tell
Yeah.
you, I can check it out. I can look at what I got, and I have a lot of, like I said, I deal with a few comic book stores,
Okay.
and some of them I can ask, what do you think about this? You know, and they'll tell me
Yeah.
up front. Also, when you go buy comic books from places, I want to show you that you can get. If you're a collector, you can ask for different magazines, and these are free at comic book stores. This one is Connect, and this one is Marvel, just Marvel free issues. And what they do is they tell you all the new comic books that are coming in the next coming months.
Oh, snap.
So you can
That's really
always
good.
be ahead. And then you can also ask them, depending on if you're a really good collector like me, they'll give you the encyclopedia, and then you can get the preview, and this will tell you what's coming out in the next year, in the next 6 months. And they'll also give you two different versions. They'll give you the independent, or the independent, or the rarer comic book
Mhm.
publishers, and then you'll get all the DC and the Marvel stuff too.
Yeah.
So these things are like, I don't know if you people remember phone books, but whatever you want to call
phone
it.
books.
How about dictionary or something?
Yeah, there we go.
Something like that. If you even,
I haven't
do that.
seen a phone book in a
Yeah,
fortnight or so.
yeah, in a fortnight. Yeah. So and then they also have, like I said, the Marvel, and they have different connects. These are different connects.
Okay.
For DC. DC is Connect, Marvel is just Marvel. But they'll give you everything coming in the next few months. So as a collector, you can look and read and say, oh, I'm going to get these. Oh, I'm going to check this. Oh, I want to see that. That type of thing. At the time of this interview, right now, the big thing right now is Godzilla versus Kong versus Justice League.
Okay.
So it's a crossover of a crossover of a crossover. So they just came out. I believe they have 6 variant covers plus the original. They have wraparound cover, they have connecting covers, and they have foil covers. So my suggestion is, if you're a collector, that's where you start. There's going to be 8 issues over the next 8 months, and that would be a nice spot to start.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be a good series to just snatch all the covers up
and just
for and
snatch
then
them
see
up.
where they go.
They're on sale, I believe, Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Tuesday, Thursdays are usually when they release new books.
So I think they're coming out. So I'm not promoting any one or the other. I'm just saying that's not a bad thing to collect. Because me, I'm going to get them all.
I think I have one last question. Does it really matter the studio on if you'd have easier access to get back issues? Because I know that that's something that some people like to do, and it's not so much collecting for the quality of comic, but just to have. So would getting DC, I'm assuming getting DC and Marvel back issues are easier than, say, like Image or Dark Horse.
Yeah, actually, yes. The reason is because DC, if there's I'm not just picking it, DC and or Marvel.
Okay.
If something kicks off, like Captain Carter, kicks off and they sell their million copies that they put, well, not that many, 100,000 copies or whatever, 50,000, whatever they sell, and they sell out real fast because they didn't think they were going to sell many. Then they reprint. Now, the reprint won't be that week. It'll be probably a week later or 2 weeks later, but they'll reprint it, and then it'll be second printing. In some cases, I think we talked about this before, The Death of Superman, issue number 75, the big hallmark, absolutely iconic comic book where Superman died. First time ever a big hero like that literally died. And that issue, they printed up a few 100,000 and they sold out in minutes. Literally, people were taking stacks of them. I mean, hey,
yeesh,
I'm guilty. And when they sold them, DC Comics knew immediately we better redo another reprinting fast. And they didn't wait till their usual Tuesday. They reprinted them and shipped them right away. And then those sold out. They reprinted. They had 5 reprintings. 3, or was it 3 or 4? I'm trying to remember. I want to say 3 or 4 newsstand printings. Overall, I think they must have had somewhere just under, maybe around 9 or 10 reprints of that comic. I mean, literally, they had reprints after reprints after reprints. The odd thing is the first printing, of course, very demand. Second printing, not so much. Third printing, not so much. Fourth printing, a little more because they finally dwindled them down. There's only a few of those. And the fifth printing, they printed a whole bunch more. And, you know, so each printing, if you investigate, you'll see that the first printings are harder to get, so they're a little more expensive as a collectible. And then second and third printing are cheaper to get. You can get those most run of the mill.
Yeah.
Then when you get to fourth, they're harder to get because they didn't print as many, and they're harder to get, so they're a little more of a collectible item. And then the fifth printing, they printed a whole bunch more, and they sat. So by then, they was like, nobody wants those. But the other thing is, a first printing newsstand edition is extremely hard to get. So those are things that as a collector, you don't always think about, is that, you go to the comic book store and they get the direct printings and da-da-da-da-da, but it's so hard to get a newsstand printing. That's the one with the barcodes. If you get a comic book from the comic book store, I don't see if I have one even here. Blah, 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 blah. Well, it says direct sale on it, but I don't have one here exactly. Let me look here. Yeah, here. This one here is Spider-Man. It's down here. It's a direct sale. So that's to a, what is it? Comic book store. To get one on the newsstand, you have to get one like this. This is an older version, but you have to get one with the barcode on the side. And it literally has all the barcodes on it. It doesn't have any words on it that says direct sale. So the newsstand editions are harder to get, especially in top quality.
Okay.
Because sitting on the newsstands, anybody can grab it, read it, throw it back on there.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get those in 9.8. Probably never going to find one at a 10. But if you did, it would be like mind-boggling because it would be mint. I mean, perfect mint.
Yeah, you had to wait for the person to come out, put it on the shelf, and immediately take it.
And then go through and then slide one out and put it in the plastic and then ship it like right away.
And there's still the risk.
And chances are it'll come back 9.6. What? You know, so that's all right. Yeah, just throw it away. No, but those are really valuable. So again, it's the gem, I guess, in a collectible thing. But Marvel also has those. The Amazing Spider-Man number 36 was a black cover. It was printed immediately after 9/11 and was Spider-Man and Marvel Comics homage to 9/11, to the events of 9/11, the tragedy of that. I have one here that the artist took and repainted, signed it, repainted it for me. Was the cover artist for that. Those are nice things to have. Some of those are extremely collectible. If you got the Amazing Spider-Man number 36 newsstand edition, it's hard. It's in demand. People would love to have that with the all black cover. There are other things that are out there that are like that too, but those are the main ones you want to look for. Newsstand editions in the best shape you can get. First printings, of course, especially premiere issues. Those are always in demand. Most vendors or publishers, will not do a mass printing of premiere issues unless they know it's going to be a big seller. And then the last thing I want to say is, if you can get comic books like from Image or some other comic book publisher, they print far less. You know, Spawn. What I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to remember the one. What is it?
Invincible on a
Image. Oh, well, I won't say the word Kick A.
Oh,
yeah. But some of those, absolutely. Spawn, the Walking Dead,
Yeah.
those types of things. Rick and Rick and Morty, things like that. As I said,
Batman Fortnite.
Fortnite, things like that. They print far less of those. Those can be really good collectible items. But again, don't buy it just because you think it's going to be a collectible. Buy it because you like that. Because then you'll be happy, regardless of whether it becomes a collectible or not.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my that's really my final thing on that is buy what you like because then you're happy. And if it's a collectible, great, you're even happier. If it isn't, you're still happy because you got what you wanted.
Yeah, I think that's the best advice to start off with when it comes to collecting. Is if you're not buying what you enjoy to at least read and look at, you're just and doing it just for the sheer value of the comic books, it's going to lose its luster real fast.
Yeah.
It's going to start feeling more like a chore instead of a fun thing to do when they get released.
And set yourself a budget.
Yes.
Absolutely set a budget because if you set a budget and don't exceed that budget, yeah, you can go buy a nice collectible comic book, like I said, 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 if you want to buy it. But if it uses your entire budget, well, that's it for the month. That's it for the week or whatever it is. But I'm going to get what I want.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. I remember I had Death of Superman when that happened, going back to that. I had set my budget at that time for $300 for the month. I bought one comic book that month. After I bought all the DC ones, all the Death of Superman, I bought one more comic book. And I kind of exceeded my budget, but I bought a platinum edition of the Death of Superman.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to get it no matter what. But I was glad I did because I had the entire thing, and that really made me happy. But then I didn't buy anything else for a while because that was my budget. That was my budget. That hit my budget, and that was it. And I just had to sit tight. Then when my next month came up, because it was near the middle of the month, so I was like only had a week or two to live, to continue. When my budget was flush again and I was ready to go in, I went and got the back issues that I didn't need before, as best as I could, and then I had to do some back checking on that to make sure I got it. But you just replenish your stock, so plan ahead. Yeah. If you know something out there is something you really want, and you use the magazines and stuff, and the comic book store or your vendor or wherever it is you're getting them from, and ask them what's the next big deal coming, and they tell you. And you say, well, I want that special issue. And he tells you, okay, I'll hold it for you. How much would it be? And he'll give you a ballpark range because you won't know for sure until he gets it, depending on what the volume is. Yeah. And if he holds it for you, be certain that that's what you want. Because once you say, hold it for me, you're committed. Yeah. If you don't fulfill that commitment, the next time you ask him, he's going to go, you held me up last time. You didn't pick it up, and I had to get it out there. Yeah, I still sold it, but, I held it.
I held it for you, and you didn't come get it, exactly. So I had to turn around.
So hang in there and do what you say you're going to do. Right. And I, like I said, I have vendors that hold books for me. And sometimes they'll hold as many as 6 months worth before I can get there and get them, or I have them ship them to me. Because it takes that long to get all that 6 months worth of the comic books. 1 to 6, like the Harley Quinn one. 6 issues. Collect them all. I want all of them. I want all the variants. Get them all. When you get them all, let me know, and then I go get them. And I can pick them all up in one shot. And they hold them for you because you're responsible and you're trustworthy, and they have a working relationship.
Yeah, as they develop the relationship with them, and that's what feel comfortable saying, I know this person will be there for me when I need that.
And that's exactly what you do. And I'm not picking one comic book store over another. Yeah. But I can go into Graham Crackers or Screaming Monkey or some of the other comic book shops and just walk in and they go, hey, Renee, what do you want? Or like I can walk into graham crackers, and they go, "Yeah, I got your stuff over here." I don't even say who I am. And I'm like,
Yeah, they see you coming from the street.
Yeah,
you're like,
they
okay,
say,
yeah.
"Oh, did you want to look?" Yeah, I'm gonna look a little. And he goes, "Okay, I'll put them up here," and then they pull them out.
And then they pull out the banker box, and that's
Yeah, well, not quite, but yeah, they know me well enough to know what I do. So that it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Let them know who you are. Let them know you're trustworthy. Let them know that whatever you buy or you're going to buy, that you're honest about it, and you will go in there and pick them up like you promised.
Yeah,
because that's important.
Exactly. Well, I learned a ton about comic book collecting that I am certain I did not walk in with the knowledge of. I thank you again for all of this, like all the pointers and like being able to understand that the two most important things when it comes to collecting comic books are keep in mind of a budget and collect something you enjoy is really important. I think that's super important, and I think that's a great foundation for anybody who wants to get started in this hobby or for some passion. That's a great foundation to go from.
Yeah, and everything else comes after.
Yeah,
you just collect what you enjoy and what you love, and
learn
you'll always be
you
happy. And I'm still learning. One of the things Nicholas asked me earlier is, you know so much. I go, I'm learning every day. I still learn things about comic books that I didn't know. I still discover new things that I didn't know, and that's part of the process. Every day, something new comes up.
Yeah.
A new version, a new comic book, a new something. And you know what? It's a lot of fun. I love it.
That's good.
I really do. I enjoy it. Yeah,
right.
and thank you again, Nicholas. Thank you, Fountaindale Library, for inviting me. I really enjoy talking about comic books. And let me look at your new 52.
Yeah, I gotta go find that one. I gotta go find that new 52. It's somewhere in my parents' house.
You have it in plastic, right? And acid free backing.
See, you asked that question, and the answer is going to be no. And it's going to make you feel bad. It makes me feel bad.
I'll bring you one.
No worries. I'll be able to get some. Anyways, thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Renee, for joining us for this one as well. And we'll catch you all another time.
Bye-bye.
All right.